Hi, folks. It's first time up on stage, so let's see how this goes. I guess a little bit about me. I've had a windy, roundabout sort of career. But what I'm going to be up here today talking about is something slightly different to some of the others. We've kind of heard some provocations of how to be more creative, how to do more with sort of what we've got. 101 ways to be more creative. But I think what I wanted to talk about was, and this might be familiar to a lot of people in the audience, because we all know that design can be very different depending on the clients you work with, where you work, the medium you're working in. So I wanted to talk about sort of creative tension. That feeling as a designer, when you feel like, as Berlin was saying, between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure everyone knows that place. You're trying to do your best work. You've got the tools, the team, the problem to solve, but you still don't feel like you're doing enough or even doing it the right way. And we talk about this on our design team a lot, feeling like we're not doing things the right way. So a bit about me, from dreams of book covers and posters and albums, a graphic design background, right, where it's a little bit more free and creative and not bounded by sort of maybe teams or anything like that, to annual reports and advertising, creative agency to digital agency to product team and now to a tech consultancy, for the last 9 years. So I've kind of made my way through and, I've kind of found my spot. And I think this is the thing, creativity for me was always a blend, my head, my heart, and my gut. And we're probably, I think as we were talking about before, that gut is probably getting used less than it ever was before. That balance of thinking, feeling, and pure instinct sometimes. But I guess this was when there was more control or design control of the execution. Easy when it's something relatively simple and static, like a logo, a book cover, or a website. You can control that. But I'm not going to talk about it for too long. But for context, for those of us who work in the software space, we know it's a different world from a creative agency or studio, where the idea and often the creative is the focus and the priority. Berlin was mentioning the 10% before. Every day on a project is about the race to minimize time, maximize our effort and deliver as fast as possible. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, the race to deliver rather than delight, which is totally depressing. It sounds depressing, but time is expensive. Consultants are expensive. I'm sure for all of you that work in consultancies, there's a constant pressure and push. So it can feel like a race to the bottom, and I think that's what we're trying to avoid now. So DiUS, quickly, without being too much of an ad, but I think this is important because this is the part of the story, about 100 plus engineers, product and design consultants. Look, you'd never meet a smarter, more humble group of people. Also, to be honest, totally nerdy and amazing, which I love. I'm a designer, but I've probably always been on the geekier side of things. But I think the one thing you would probably say, and all our design team would say, it's not a very designerly environment sometimes. You have to fight hard to make that space to be creative, because you can get caught up in the sort of the day-to-day, the agile, the tickets, all of these kind of things. And look, there are more acronyms than you can think of. GCP, AWS, SQL, all of them. The day-to-day discussion is pretty technical between Kubernetes and Auth0. We're outnumbered 16 to 1. The golden standard is around 4 to 1, designer to engineer ratio. So 16 to 1 is pretty high. And I always took that as a challenge, we want to grow our design team. We want to equalize those numbers so we can have more representation. But I see it as more of an honor, to be part of this larger group. Team of 8, completely outnumbered, but the work we do is really valued. So I guess this is part of the tension I'm talking about today, right? Talking about designers, we want to feel like we're making impact. We want to guide the ship to the best of ideas. We want to build ideas with our team and make people's lives better. I mean, do any of us do what we do, and not want to do those things? We want to feel like we're doing things the right way. And I think, I've done my master's, I've kind of studied, there's all this pressure to do things a certain way. I know Chi was talking about the push to be human-centered. That pressure is pretty heavy sometimes. Design time gets cut over delivery time every time. There's a push to do more with less and be more impactful. There's tension between development goals and design goals. We all want that successful outcome, but the expectations of each role and even KPIs can be completely different. I've bumped into this so many times, working at big corporates, being part of a delivery team, but then also responsible to the design team and having two different, expectations and outcomes for each team. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. But it's become more head than heart. And with that focus on velocity, data, and less gut, I think we're really starting to lose things. So I guess, how does creativity work in a largely technical environment? Because it does work. Like, it's an incredibly creative environment. Just maybe not the way we usually think about it. Similar concepts, different words. Hacking, jury rigging, POCs, proof of concepts, mocking, sketching, prototyping. They are the same things, just different words, but with similar kind of outcomes. So I'm going to switch gears for a moment here. Indulge me, and talk about some of the work we do in machine learning. This is, I think, for me, it's a really fertile space. It's a really open space, and the opportunity is there for us as designers, because we're moving from this largely technical space into a user and human space with these products. I've never seen so much pure amazement and joy with each new announcement in the last 6 months, except for those people that are slightly scared of algorithms and models and infringing on a human space, creation and creativity. But I guess, where does that creativity come into the work we do in machine learning? For me, I like to think of it as the work we've done in the last couple of years in the space as applied ML. It's a subset of machine learning, which is a subset of AI. I'm not technical, and this space is so complex. It's getting more complex. The models are getting larger, the data is getting bigger. So I don't like to speak out of turn, when we have so many experts with PhDs and years of knowledge in this space. But what I do have is passion and curiosity. I'm hoping that things will get a little bit weirder as well. Experimentation and completely new ways of doing things as the effort ratchets down. So Vanita was talking about automation just then. I think that's going to be a really important factor. So here's how we start to think about the process. And I'm not going to skip through a lot of this. But the idea and solution is still key to what we need to be able to solve our problem. But I think what happens is it gets boiled down into a single objective, a machine learning objective. What is the one thing we want this model to be able to achieve and perform for us? What is that one thing? It's pretty narrow. The hardware, the models we select, the training data we have available, and how long we have to deliver a POC. It's a bit of a cake mix process. So first example is an insurance company. This was a new insurance product for Southeast Asian market, selling mobile phone insurance post-purchase. It's based on a self-service model. It's available 24/7. Without leaving your home, you can purchase insurance for your new phone or your old phone. So examining with a computer vision model your phone's screen for cracks and damage. I guess that's the crux of it, providing an approval or not based on your phone's condition. A couple of minutes, a phone, a mirror, and you're good to go. Or not, if you're trying to get away with a phone that has recently been dropped by a toddler on the floor. Anyone who has toddlers. Simple on the surface. It's a simple idea, but really complex to actually make happen. There's multiple models working together in the background to come up with that rating and a decision. Recognizing a phone is present, positioning the phone in the right spot for the right time, the right angle, and then removing as much interference as possible. The creativity is in the unusual usage of the model in this product and the interaction to make it work. So the second example, Swoop Aero, hopefully some of you guys know them. Melbourne-based drone startup, you might have seen them in the news. They've been very successful recently, successfully delivering and picking up medical supplies and samples in Africa and Polynesia, soon in Queensland, and they just got their beyond line of sight license for Australia. I guess what's different about their model is it's all remote piloting. Drones in Africa, drones in Fiji, drones in Queensland, the pilots are all based out of Melbourne. So this, I guess, creates some interesting challenges. Each pilot has up to 30 to 1, like 30 drones that they are controlling. Monitoring for weather, events in the kind of region they're in, critical times, a takeoff and landing. Landing in remote areas, often remote villages. A drone landing is an exciting event. Sean was just talking about that contextual research, the context of something happening. These drones, it's not a simple, it becomes an event. People are excited about this. People come out, they crowd around, they're sort of all around the landing zone. And this is a bit of a problem, right? Kids, dogs, all kinds of dynamic hazards when a drone is descending. A pilot is across multiple drones. Well, you can see the problem here. The idea was to reduce that mental overhead. The drone descends automatically with a computer vision model monitoring for hazards. If clear, the drone will complete the landing. If not, it'll pause, wait for that hazard to clear, or abort and go to a secondary landing zone. A pretty straightforward idea with a lot of complexity happening behind the scenes. There's creativity and experimentation and model selection, working with some very limited hardware constraints on that drone. Like it's connected to satellite, it has 5G, but it only has a very small amount of memory. So I guess what I've talked about here is like these kind of examples. There's all work we're really proud of, practical ideas brought to life by machine learning models that are trained to be really good at one thing, detecting cracks or hazards or reading text to add to eating plans. It all starts with a good idea to solve a very specific objective: detect, monitor, extract. But this is where I feel there's a lot of tension there. We've done our research, we've identified the opportunity, we've brainstormed, we've co-designed, and now we need to find the fit for the idea with the technology, which kind of starts to take away from our creativity. The best idea doesn't always win out. The technology needs to be able to execute. I've always got engineers in my ear going, yeah, we can do this, or we can't do that, or sometimes we're pushing them harder. It's like, let's just try it. Let's try it. The right model for the job to make the cake mix work. The ML engineers would hate me right now. I make it sound so easy. It discounts all the data and training and iteration involved to get any of these ideas to work. So thinking about breaking out of different roles, technology and constraints, the ways I see it working are, and this is not a new thing by any means, building skin in the game, ownership and engagement, sharing that creative load with your team and stakeholders, using your engineer partners, your developer partners to do some of the creation as well. Something that gets forgotten about, taking the time to build that story around your idea, helping people understand the context of what's going on and how it will transform the solution you're working on. That landing sort of story from Africa with Swoop, without those people standing around and understanding the context of it, it's nothing. It's just a drone coming in and landing or not landing. So you've got your ownership, your story to provide context, and now you've got to collect some evidence and some data to support your idea. I guess it comes back to sort of that head again, maybe not so much heart, but we all know that we've got to be collecting this data to kind of make it convincing, support that idea that maybe is a little bit risky. And then taking something again from engineering, hacking and tinkering, breaking things apart, creating something new and expected, smashing new things together, breaking it apart and putting it together better. So I've talked about applied ML, and I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about the generative elephant in the room. It's the new, old, hot thing. LLMs and their broad kind of capabilities, they're very different to sort of what we're currently using in a lot of these examples. And this seems to grow exponentially every week. There is so much opportunity in this space for designers, and look, space is probably a good way to put it. The space where generated output appears is open and unpredictable. Something that designers are used to, navigating and working with uncertainty. Others are not so good at that. So the X factor, so maybe the gut and the instinct will come back. New problems to solve, new ways of interacting, new ideas to explain. This is all fertile ground. And this is something I'm really curious and passionate about. If you believe the talk, repetitive manual work will start to, disappear. And I know that, and Jess, who's talking next, is going to talk about this a little bit as well. There is an opportunity for more magic in design, bringing back the delight, the joy, and not just dryly solving a problem. We'll all look back in the state of things in 10 years, and we'll see that it was also primitive, but it does feel like we are at the beginning of something new. A designer will be able to scale what they're doing and hopefully spend more time connecting ideas and solutions with that empathy and heart, in a way that technology can't. So, I guess to finish up, technology is the box we work in, or the box our company works in. It's our frame and our space for creativity. It gives us limits, headaches, and new opportunities. We need to learn its limits, experiment, and be able to push and stretch it to be able to move past those cake mix solutions. Tension can be a good thing. It's creative, it's energy, it's excitement. Tension between constraints and ideas, roles and people, and the complexity and that effort to kind of get over that speed bump. That effort is kind of coming down, so there is more opportunity there. So I'm hoping for weird new flavors, of cake mix solutions. We'll see what happens. Thank you, folks.